Well, happy October, everyone. I'm wearing my new pink shirt from our Making Strides friends in honor of all the pink activity I know that's happening this month and still to come. I want to go through a pretty decent agenda, so I'll try to keep it timely, though. I know there's been a lot happening since we got back from Leadership Summit and Lobby Day in September, and our last call I know is primarily really giving high level overview of that really great trip to DC and all of our federal work. But I do want to update on some of the other travel that Leo and I have had in the last 2 weeks. In fact, Leo, our government relations director, is back from paternity leave. But since he's been back, we've had trip after trip. So he is currently in DC for Partners in Priorities. So he's with all of the government relations directors across the country and some of our federal staff and high level partners discussing all of our priorities. So literally called Partners in Priorities. So he'll be out this week in DC. And a lot of you know from the Friday update email that we were also in St. Louis for a recent trip around what we call Project 1350. So I do definitely want to talk a little bit about that. But before we dive into some of those priorities, since we met last, we did officially close out our Lights of Hope season for 2023. So I think October 6th was the final day of the website being live. So for any of you, I think everyone on this call actually had a Lights of Hope page. But for anyone listening in on the recording too, I do have all our final totals and a spreadsheet in detail that I have shared as a working document. So I do want everyone to be able to be a part of the conversation when we're closing out this season and preparing, kind of looking ahead for 2024. So it was linked in my Friday email recently. And then I know anyone who did have a Lights of Hope page, I also sent you an email this morning just with some of those details and that document. But what I really wanted to spend a few minutes talking about is Tom actually emailed me with some really great thoughts and questions. And so I wanted to be able to answer for everyone on the call kind of what the next few months looks like then if we don't have websites, especially if you're going to, say, a Making Strides event, which I know many of you just attended some of those. And we have Columbus's on Sunday. But also just any community events that you might want to attend. Or if you see something that's happening in your community and you think you'd be able to partner with an organization or company to set up a table for ACS Can, I do want to talk through what that might look like and say someone does want to make a donation to you, but you don't have an active URL anymore, what that might look like. So first, I know Julie was recently at Strides with Leah in Cincinnati. We also had Dayton's event. We also were in Canton and Cleveland this past weekend. So I wanted to give an example of Julie's efforts just because I was there with her at the table in Dayton. She, as a lot of you know, Julie had her crafts out at the table. Um, this is an official, unofficial answer. So this stays within our group. Yes, this is a recording. Just don't send it maybe to some of the other powers that be above. Um, but Julie, of course, was going to take advantage of that really big opportunity of having so many people in front of her that might want some pink attire and to support our efforts. So she did collect donations via kind of all digital platforms. So whatever you might have, like Venmo, PayPal. I think you had Cash App on there, Julie. You had Apple Pay, you name it. She kind of had a one-page flyer. Of course, where the money goes. We have all our ACS Can pamphlets and some of those basic materials. But right now, kind of in this lull until they tell us when they're going to release our new sites, that is my unofficial, official answer that I can give from a donation standpoint where you can collect memberships, you can collect donations, and you can have people fill out a membership form or a Lights of Hope form it'll have 2023 on it. It won't be dated, of course, right now for 2024. And then you can hang on to that in your personal fun collections. And then what Molly Waite and the team have suggested, and this is an official answer, is that if you're going to have any paper that you're collecting, so say you do have someone fill out a Lights of Hope page and they want a bag for next year's season efforts, you'll just keep all of those and you'll mail them in, but it has to be with a check or a money order if you're sending in paper. Now, if you're collecting everything digital and you don't have any membership forms, you can then later make an online donation to your page personally for that sum of what you've collected. But if you're getting pages and paper and you want to officially mail those in for a membership, that cannot be made digitally online as a donation, and then that person get credit from the membership form. So that's where a check would be preferred for Molly and their purposes. And again, it can be a personal check, one personal check that you write that totals all of the forms that you've collected, but they just need a physical check or money order if we're mailing in paperwork also to them. But again, if you have no paperwork linked to it, you can then make an online donation when the pages go live. And we don't know when that will be. So we saw this year that it was earlier than what I have heard from previous years. February was when they launched, but it could be January. You know, I'm curious what Molly and the team might be working on as far as an earlier launch to our donor drive pages. But this year it was February. We haven't really heard an official announcement of when those will be planned to go live for 2024. But in the meantime, that is the official like fundraising membership answer that I can give you while you're out and about and maybe promoting donations in the fall and winter.
Sarah, I talked to Molly because I had relay on October 1st.
Yeah.
So she told me that it would be February next year when it's up and running.
Did she? I was really curious if they were going to try to go for the same timeline. That's good for us to know.
That's their goal, because I was like, I'm going to get donations. How do I do it? She said, you have to, like exactly what you said. Collect the money, get the membership forms, and then send it in with a check or do an online donation if you don't get membership forms. So that's what awesome. It is going to be February.
That's good for us all to know as we're out and about and working a lot of these events to come.
So if we are getting cash or check, we should let the check writers know that check's not going to be cashed for a while, correct?
If you're waiting to maybe send it, that would be a good heads up. You can obviously send them for this year. This is simply anyone that's strategically waiting for your efforts in 2024. Again, that's my official, unofficial. If you're not waiting for this year, Lights of Hope purposes, go ahead and send in memberships. But if it's Lights of Hope, you'd wait.
If you have something that you send in now, it will still go for 2023?
Correct. Okay. Again, that's why it's my official, unofficial. I know many of us are ready to mentally be planning out your 2024 goals and efforts. So that's where that official, unofficial answer comes from. But memberships are a different thing. If someone is simply just filling out an ACS CAN membership form and it's not Lights of Hope or fundraising related, then absolutely you can go ahead and be sending those in. But if it's Lights of Hope efforts, it would count towards this year if you were to mail it in from now until the end of the year. Hopefully that answers some fundraising. But sponsorship. So Tom also brought up a really great question. We had our first of what I hope will be many strategy sessions to come. We had such a great season with fundraising this year, and sponsorship was one part of that, but also just new fundraising ideas that we really implemented. Our t-shirt sale, the Double Good popcorn fundraiser that we did. We want ideas like that to continue. So we did start one again, of what will hopefully be many fundraising kind of strategy sessions, brainstorming calls together as a team last Tuesday. So that recording was in the Friday email if you missed it and want to catch up. Again, we just had a first of what will hopefully be a lot of upcoming brainstorming calls. But our hope is to do more ideas that are statewide, like that popcorn fundraiser and t-shirt fundraiser, but also to really help each other in our communities when we're thinking about maybe new sponsorship and opportunities to really grow in our fundraising efforts around community partners, organizations, companies. So that's where that working document came from. It can kind of serve as a place for all of us across the state to put in any prospects. Because what I can say is that a lot of companies are going to be working on their budgets now for 2024, especially when we think about hospital systems and larger company and accounts. They are thinking ahead even for their giving side of their company on what kind of money they're going to be allocating. So we should and could be talking to companies now in hopes that they will sponsor us in 2024. So, of course, we don't have a 2024 sponsorship packet, but I don't anticipate much will change. I don't think, especially now that we have the new $10,000 presenting sponsor, I don't see them adding any new levels or implementing any big changes. But you can go ahead and be having some sponsorship meetings or what I call proposal meetings, where you're reaching out to companies, especially if we have warm leads with names from companies that we want to engage. All of your sponsors from this year, if you secure sponsors, you could be doing kind of a thank you meeting and thinking ahead to 2024 and asking them to budget, for support next year of your efforts. And then the hope would be that when we're having these meetings over November, December, that they are budgeting for that donation into next year. So I know Julie, another example, had a sponsor that was late getting back to her this year, someone that has generally donated to her efforts but didn't make it in time for 2023. Julie just went ahead and switched gears since it was October, and is talking to them about their donation instead, waiting until 2024. When we're thinking about cashing of checks or sending in donations, because we have the next 2 months kind of open, I think it's really a great opportunity for us just to be having those emails and hopefully in-person meetings if you're able to meet with anyone to talk about next year's efforts. And so that's where that document can come into play. We can all look at that together over the next 2 months to support each other if we're scheduling meetings. So I saw, Tom, you already went in and entered some in the Southern Ohio area. I just sent that out. So in the next couple of weeks, if you are wanting to be a part of this strategy session for sponsorship and us all hopefully being able to, again, attend any meetings with each other, craft emails together if you're working on an email proposal to someone. That's what we really want next year to look like, kind of amplifying our sponsorship efforts, but supporting each other through that, because it is a new concept for a lot of us to try to think about sending in our sponsorship packet and making asks, because sponsorship hasn't been around that long for Lights of Hope, and they've definitely added a lot of new levels in the last year or two. We are fortunate to have a verbal commitment already for a presenting sponsor at $10,000 from OSU the James with Christy. And so a big question was also asked in our strategy session. Well, what if we get someone else that wants to do another $10,000? I have went ahead and posed that question to our fundraising team, but I, like many of us talked about, if you were on that strategy session, don't think they would turn away two $10,000 donors. So we would get creative on what that would look like if we were to get two presenting sponsors. But I love the idea of thinking big like that, especially for some of these sponsors that we had this year in that $2,500 level, asking them to consider larger donations. So just the beginning of sponsorship, but if you can at least go into the working document, if you have potentials, that way we know who those are as a team. And then our next call can be kind of breaking out who's going to support who, and what some of that outreach might look like for meetings or proposal emails if you don't get an in-person meeting, what you might send to someone if you're going to ask for sponsorship. So let's start with the working document, and then we can split up into groups, helping each other with some of those emails and meetings. Any thoughts or questions about fundraising and sponsorship? I appreciate you thinking ahead, as Lauren and I are going to be working together to set our goal for next year. My understanding is that that will be due from all of the state teams in early December. So we've got the next couple of weeks to really think about what your individual goals might be for 2024. Working in our sponsorship document, that will definitely help Lauren and I crafting a goal that will be realistic for our team. And also it just helps the whole organization of ACS Can when we're looking at our budget and our goals to know what each of our states are planning for is how it helps the entire enterprise set our budget. So it's really important all the way from our state levels up. So I appreciate all of you thinking about that, sending me your thoughts on what your goals might be, and really working together to support each other into whatever our whole statewide goal will be for next year. Okay. Well, that's fundraising sponsorship. So thinking legislative efforts. For those of you that were with us last week, we had our policy forum. It was definitely an exciting one. So this is an event where we kind of come together and we hear from expert panelists that Leo secures from various health organizations, hospitals, and partners that are in the system. This year, we talked about access to care. I wish there could be a virtual option for anyone that wasn't able to drive into Columbus to hear the really great presenters. But we also were lucky that we were able to award Governor DeWine with his National Distinguished Advocacy Award. So we were able to submit for DeWine to be considered for that award this year with all of his support in our tobacco efforts and helping us veto preemption twice, technically within the last year. And so we were very, very fortunate that his team communicated with ours to get him there in person for us to present that award. Really exciting that Vince and Pam were able to be there as SLA, Vice SLA in the picture with DeWine. We will definitely be using that photo strategically to work with DeWine and his team in the future because we definitely have our work cut out for us when it comes to our tobacco efforts in the next couple of years. So that is why we were invited to the Project 1350 strategy meeting that was created this year in St. Louis. And what Project 1350 means and focuses on is the 13 states with the worst tobacco rates in the country. And then 50 is a 50% goal. So when you think about President Biden's cancer moonshot goals, essentially, when we look at those goals as an organization, we understand that we're not going to reach the moonshot goals if we don't combat some of our tobacco issues in our country that create much of our cancer-related diagnoses in many states. Ohio is one of those 13 states. We're not the worst, but we're right in the middle. I think we're state number 7 or 8 worst in the country with our tobacco rates. So we were invited to that conference and alongside the other 12 states and their staff. It was really eye-opening, and I really enjoyed the opportunity to get to sit down with these other states and talk about the work that we're doing, what's worked, what hasn't when it comes to our tactics for increasing funding, fighting preemption like we just had to do. Other states are doing that too. So we were able to really share our efforts and our tactics, but they also challenged us to really look at our strategy charts and think about what didn't work this year and what do we need to be thinking ahead to in our next budget cycle. For us, that's every 2 years. Some states, that's annually. So Ohio is on a 2-year budget plan. So we're thinking ahead to 2025's budget since we just had our 23 budget. And as you all know, we were cut in our funding. And so we're kind of in a really unique standpoint right now with our funding being cut this year, but fighting a lot of preemption and winning in a lot of local efforts. So obviously, we passed our flavor ban ordinance in Columbus. We're doing efforts in Cleveland and Cincinnati now, and a lot of other suburbs across Ohio are coming forth with interest in the flavor work at the local municipalities. But we know our budget in 25 is going to be a big one, and that's because it's potentially going to be DeWine's last 2 years as governor. He has openly said he's not running for any future offices. Um, we're really in a unique stance in working with him over the years to really kind of lean into the thought of asking him for very large things that can be his legacy, if you will, to leave behind. So DeWine has been known since the 90s to be working on tobacco efforts and being very vocal against big tobacco. So they really asked us to think big when we were at this Project 1350 strategy meeting, and they are going to ask us to work towards not only restoring our funding, but working on a cigarette tax increase of $1.50. You all that have been around for a while know that that's hard work when it comes to thinking about not only funding, but also a tax. But again, we're in a really unique situation with DeWine that if we really can build some tactics around asking him for this to include it in his budget, we can at least start there with him including it and then know that our work needs to be really strategic in the House and the Senate. So that's what they've tasked us to be thinking ahead. It's going to take all of 2024 to really build out tactics to prepare us for 25. So thank you cards to the governor can be happening now. Something that was kind of an idea we had, using this photo from the award ceremony. Thank you, Governor DeWine, but we need you to help us leave your legacy. And we know that our work is still cut out for us when it comes to tobacco. And we know we need to increase our funding again. And we also know that there is a lot of opportunity to discuss a tax. So I want to prepare the team, I guess, for that, because that's really what Leo is going to guide us through as we look into 2024 is bringing all of you and your ideas together with tactics that we can work on to ask of this in DeWine when we prepare for his 25 budget. And again, it's going to take all of next year to be building on strategy and tactic to prepare for that. But that's how we in Ohio, at least, coming out of that meeting, can make the biggest impact is trying to restore our funding and go for a tax. Any thoughts on that Project 1350 and what might be ahead for us in the next 2 years when we look at tobacco work? Big stuff, but again, I think there's a lot of opportunity, um, given where we are with DeWine and his situation, that we can at least work with him, but we know then who our tactics might be in the House and the Senate, and who surprised us in shutting down our funding this year. So I think it was a really big surprise to Leo and all of the lobbyists that we really felt like we weren't going to have a decrease in our funding. I can tell you right now, the name Huffman is going to be big when we think ahead into 24 and prepping for a 25 budget. Matt Huffman and his cousin Steve Huffman in the House and Senate will be tactic oriented lawmakers for us, who definitely led a lot of conversations. Matt Huffman in particular, potentially being this an upcoming speaker candidate, is someone we really need to do a deeper dive, looking at who he plays nice with, what his initiatives and hopes are, so that we could try to convince a tax, where the funds of a tax could go towards, and really looking a little closer at their um, donors and just who are the names that are going to move the Huffmans. And so that's kind of going to also be a big part of our project into 24 is thinking about partners that we should have at the table, like the James, or who are the names that would be of interest to them to have at the table that we can have to, again, kind of put some pressure on them and show that we have power when it comes to our ask. So that's we've got our work cut out for us, but that's kind of what working with the tobacco team we mapped out in a very quick 2-day conference, but will be the ongoing work that we are going to focus on in 24 to prep for 25. Any thoughts or questions on that, especially anyone that's been around and worked on a lot of these efforts over the years? I'm excited to kind of dive into it more, but we've got our
Just my
work cut out for
comment.
us.
Anything dealing with the tobacco tax is really, really tough.
It is. Don't know firsthand, obviously, but I know Leo and the team definitely know that, and we're all gonna have to, again, really lean in on tactics and strategy that are gonna work to move some of these lawmakers like the Huffmans. But we're in a fortunate, yeah, situation with DeWine at least. We feel pretty confident, we'll work on tactics and think about ways to really engage him in his office with this ask. But Leo feels pretty confident about that. It'll just be that work beyond that in the House and Senate. And we'll be more prepared this time, knowing that we just came out of 2023 with a decrease in our funding. So we know that we're going to have to be a bit more vocal and a bit more forward um, in our asks and in our tactics. Otherwise, I can give just a brief update on biomarkers and copay accumulator. There's not as much that has been happening in that realm. Um, it's an odd time right now as we prepare for the upcoming um, ballot measures that are going to be coming up in a few weeks in November. I think the state house is really it's been quieter as we wait to see on issue 1 and 2 some things that are happening. So there haven't been a lot of lawmakers having committee hearings or meetings. I am grateful to Scott Lips, the representative who chairs our Public Health Committee. He did bring the committee together, as you all saw. Those kind of have been the only updates I've been able to share. He did bring the committee together for the copay accumulator second hearing, and we were fortunate to have some written testimony submitted along with many others. And if you watch that recording that was in the Friday email a few weeks back, he definitely emphasized at the end of the hearing that when the public submits so many written testimonies on an issue, the committee should listen. I think there were 32 written testimonies submitted for that bill, and that's pretty powerful. So I anticipate that hopefully he'll call for a third meeting and to vote it out of committee soon. And then we'll work on some efforts getting a House floor vote for that. Biomarkers has not been as easy. I know Leo shared how much negotiating he's had to do with the insurance plans and the Chamber of Commerce um, on wording to the biomarker legislation, but I think we're finally at a place, he said, where when that committee does come back together, the insurance committee in that instance, that we can pressure Barhorst, the chair, to call it for a vote. So we're kind of in the exact same situation for both biomarker and copay that we're just waiting for the committees to come back and have their vote and then get them both to the House floor so that we can really focus in 2024 on the Senate side. Um, so what I want to share is a kind of tactic that we started in Dayton because Steve Huffman is so close to that district. We know that copay will probably go to his health committee in the Senate. So Julie created one-page flyers that said copay accumulator, House Bill 177. There she goes. All copays count. This was a really great idea, specifically because we were in again, Steve Huffman's area, that we were taking these and taking photos of participants at Making Strides with any kind of logo we saw that we thought might hold value, like University of Dayton students were there. We got a huge group photo of them. Bob Ross Auto Group, PSA Airlines, any companies or organizations, anyone we saw, little kids, especially if we could grab a mom and a little kid, we had the little kid hold it, knowing that that could really be impactful. Leo loved the idea for, again, this being kind of targeted to Steve Huffman for copay, but for biomarkers, we created those that we want to share with all of you. So this is a little bit more across the state, could be an effort that we all lean in on. So Leo and I made, similar to Julie's efforts there for copay, we made kind of generic ones about biomarker, and that House Bill 24. So I'm going to share those digitally with all of you. They are not pink because we wanted them to be red, white, blue, kind of all ACS can branding for any future events that you're going to. We really, again, think that we could use this as a tactic to share not only to the chair of the committees that we're asking for votes, but when we work on our House floor vote efforts and going into the Senate next year. I think photo strategy, we could make photo books, we could make posters, whatever that might look like as a deliverable, sending them in emails, but especially social media. We could just do multiple follow-up, kind of flood social media with all of these various photos. So we really want to make that a tactic moving forward, for biomarker. And again, we're really excited to use the copay one, specifically for Steve Huffman. But I would just ask, if you're going to any future events, if you want to share them with friends and family or any organizations that you're close to. Christy, if you could take them to work and maybe, after Strides this weekend, I know you'll be using them with Leo and I at Columbus Strides, but how impactful would it be if we had, OSU the James nurses holding this biomarker, sign? Anyone you can think of that, might be a cool opportunity to take a photo holding these signs. Tom, your high school son, I'm going to have Willie hold a photo, grandkids, anyone that we could, have take this photo and really push the support of biomarker testing legislation, I think would be a really impactful tactic that we haven't tried. So we're trying to get creative and think of any deliverables that we could give to these lawmakers. And again, it's a really great opportunity for social media too. And when we're crafting emails, using these photos to tag into our emails. So I would just ask that everyone think about how you could potentially get some photos, with the biomarker testing signs. There's 3 or 4 options that we created, Leo and I. So you could print one of each, and just take, again, various photos, with partners or anyone that you could potentially email the signs to as well and ask them to, print and take photos. I'm going to make an album on our shared Google account. And I think it's going to be kind of a, yeah, unique deliverable that we can use and that Leo can definitely use when he has meetings, with upcoming lawmakers, for us to print and have as kind of a storybook. So hopefully that is something we can all really amplify. But definitely the Making Strides walks has been a cool opportunity to think, creatively, especially in targeted areas like Steve Huffman and Dayton. So over the fall, if you're working on any tabling events or can just reach out to partners and collect those photos and send them my way, we'll upload them to the Google Drive and have those available for Leo, kind of as a creative use when we're working with all these committees and lawmakers.
Julie got a really good one of the House bill, biomarker testing sign with the FC Cincinnati mascot.
Love
At
it. Yeah,
Strides.
mascots is fun. Apps, anyone, creative ideas exactly like that. Love it. So right now, that's kind of where we are, on our statewide legislation too. And Leah will be back after travels, and able to join us on our next call. Um, we did have a surprise guest of baby Ollie at the policy forum. So that was cute to see for all of us that were there in person, but they're doing very well, he and Haley. And I'm excited for him to be able to jump into some future calls with us. We also are going to be traveling to Portland next week, our last trip of the year. We've had a lot of trips this year, very unique opportunities that they're providing for us, which is really great. But we're going to be meeting with our West Wing team, as they're called. So us Great Midwest states will be meeting with all of the West Wing states, grassroots managers and um, government relations directors to talk about sharing ideas, tactics. I know Molly will be there for fundraising. So it's a 3-day conference that will be traveling to November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So Leo and I will be heading out next week for that and can definitely in our November meeting share what comes from that time together with a lot of our peers on the West Coast. So looking forward to that. Those are all of my updates. Does anyone want to share some things you've been working on? Exciting things that you've seen maybe over the last month since we all got together, or thinking ahead into November? Well,
Are there
Beth,
strategies at the federal level with lingering
yeah,
pieces of legislation?
good question.
Of
Yeah,
course, who knows what's happening in Washington, but
there is
um,
some, unique things happening,
maybe
right? But I can say if you live in Congressional District 6 and 11, you got an email from me. I know we don't have really anyone super active in 6, but 11 we do. Uh, right now, the Fed team was really focusing on follow-ups to MSED sponsors from last year who co-sponsored, who haven't co-sponsored this year. So for us, that was uh, Bill Johnson and Chantel Brown in 6 and 11. They're the only two that were co-sponsors last year and haven't yet co-signed. So we did send a strategic email to them for folks that live in the district. I know that Michelle Zimmerman, our advocacy media regional advocacy, her family is in Marietta in District 6. So she did say she was going to get her mom and sister and some family members to send that to Bill Johnson. So we've at least reached out to both offices. Batul and Robin are in 11, and they're sharing with some others that they can strategically have send as well to Chantel Brown.
Can you send me something
For 6 or 11?
for 6? Since
Sure.
I've dealt with the district person there forever.
Yeah, I can share what
And
they
I have 2 people I'm trying to get into the fold.
That would be great for anyone that you were trying to engage. At least asking them to send the email would be huge.
They'll both be glad to do that.
That'd be perfect. Thanks. I'll send it your way, Pam.
I have a question for Julie. This is Christy. Let me get myself on here.
hi, Christy.
Hello. So Julie, for the strides this weekend, can you send me your little one pager just so I can see how you did the well, you probably did your same story and everything, which I'll do from the same as what I did for our this year's Lights of Hope. But I just wanted to see how you did your like little Venmo things and stuff. Like as far as that, when people scan in, do you have your normal like Venmo handle or do you have something else? Because I'm just wondering, do they trust you when they see that it's your own personal one?
I have not had anyone ask me for anything other than just paying for goods and services.
And I will say, though, that she has her business cards there that people generally take too. So it's very branded and She does have a little ACS CAN business card that she
Yeah, I
hands
have that.
them. So that helps too, because then they have your contact information. They can, work with you in the future if they want to donate or um, get a receipt or whatever it may be, right? So I would say that that's key too, is having your contact info.
And Christy, if you are actually manning a table that has ACS cans splashed all over it, I
Yeah.
think that most people will be trusting that you're not awkwardly trying to get their money.
Yeah.
I get it.
And it helps
Christy,
that, yeah, Leo's with you too. So that helps as well.
Yeah.
You've got staff there.
and Christy, I've done it at several events now for things other than Lights of Hope. I've done it for my Pride bracelets and that, and I've never had anybody question me. I mean, they'll ask me for the last 4 digits of my phone number, but because I'm at an ACS branded table, they don't question. So you
Okay.
should not have a problem with it.
Okay. Thank you for that. I do kind of have an update about Ohio State.
Exciting.
So, I mean, yes and no in a way. So, I sent that email to Chris Kipp as a follow-up to our conversation, Julie, when we went to the Impact Makers event.
Mhm.
I did not hear back from him. Or anybody on the team, but I did not send it to the director of nursing. So maybe I should have done that. The other thing was, I'm sure, like you said, Sarah, they're still trying to work through their budget for the year and everything. But I know has us on his mind. I know that because I was invited. This was just I just was overwhelmed. I am overwhelmed with how many people at the James actually know the things that I'm doing through ACS CAN because of the post with my Lights of Hope out in the Morehouse. So they invited me to go to a couple of weeks ago. It was a nursing forum. And I was like, why are they inviting me to go? And they were like, well, because they're going to have some slides of you up, your Lights of Hope out in front of the Morehouse. And they want to talk about what you are doing here at the James and how big of an impact you are making for our facility and for our patients. And so I went, and it was amazing. They talked about what I did, and they showed the slides and with the photos. And then after the presentation, the director of professional development came up to me, and she said, I want to make a video about the things that you're doing here at the James. And she said, we're having this big conference. We're Ohio State. I don't know if you've heard that we're certified by Magnet, which is a big prestigious, like, if you're a Magnet certified institution, you're like very prestigious. So we have been certified by Magnet. And so they're always looking for ways to show how nurses are, all the things that nurses are doing above and beyond other medical facilities. So she's like, I want to like showcase you and all the things that you're doing with ACS CAN and everything. So she's like, I'll get back with you when I get back from the conference. So I haven't heard from her yet. But on the other scale is Julie, I applied for the fellowship, and Chris Kipp told my director that he wanted to make sure I applied for it. So I know he still remembers our conversation. I know that I'm still on his radar, and he said, I want to make sure she applied. I debated whether or not I even wanted to tell you guys that I applied, because what happens if I don't get in? They only choose 2 nurses. So it is what it is, but I applied. So
Christy, Chris Kipp mentioned to us that evening. Chris Kipp mentioned to us that evening that he's a very busy man, but he wanted to have lunch with us. And I think if both of us push him for a date for lunch, that can only help us.
Right, so it's your turn now.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So what's
It's on my
this?
list.
So what's this? So what is this fellowship, honey? What is it
Okay,
for?
so there is at Ohio State, they started it in 2019. They started a government advocacy fellowship where it used to be only one nurse, but now two nurses are chosen to dedicate 1 hour of week. Now, Julie, the hitch here is I cannot dedicate that to ACS can efforts. I have to gear it towards what efforts Ohio State is telling me I have to like look at. Now, it's
All right.
still it's still going to be highlighting the things that I do because everything that I put in my application was about what I've done with ACS can. So that's what made me a very good candidate for it. But basically, Ohio State is going to let two nurses dedicate 20% of their paid work time to government advocacy, whatever that might be. And they kind of are on the same lines as where ACS can, like Sarah and our leaders, are helping us to form the relationships that we need and giving us the information that we need to bring to our lawmakers. Ohio State's going to do the same thing in that respect. Tell us what's
Perfect.
important to our institution and to our cancer patients in general. And they're going to give me the ability to go out and do what I need to do to pass these legislative efforts that they're looking at.
Christy,
So,
Christy, who would be better than you to do that job?
I
I am
know.
telling you, girlfriend, hang in there. If not this year, maybe next year. Don't give up.
oh, I'm going to tell you
Don't
right
give
now,
up.
my manager was not thrilled
Oh,
whatsoever.
I bet not.
I got some, like, she was like, what does this mean? And I said, well, you know what it's about, you know what I've been doing. And she said, but that means you're not going to be on the floor 20% of the time.
Exactly. Mhm.
And I I said, well, Kim, you know how important this is to me, and I'm really sorry. I don't want to be not a team player for my other fellow nurses and
Right.
because I don't want them to experience any backlash by me not being there. But on the
Mhm.
other hand, I said, this is something that is very important to me. And I'm like 30 years into my nursing career. I'm ready to
Right.
start doing things that I want to do with my nursing career versus what I don't mean it to sound that way, but that other people are
Sound
telling
it.
me I need to do. Like, I want to advocate
Yes.
the way I want to advocate. And I'm
Mhm.
sorry if that seems selfish, but it's not like I'm a 2-year nurse. I've been a nurse for 30
Right.
years. So I feel like
Right.
I deserve to be able to do this. And I had to get her support. Like, I had to have a letter of support from her. And at first, I didn't think that was the last thing I needed. I did not think she was going to sign. She had to sign something, and then she also had to write a letter. And I did not think that she was going to do it. And she kept me hanging until the very last minute, until the application was due. And
Oh.
she ended up doing it. I know it does not make her happy at all, but I
But
know
does she
yeah.
know that your big boss is wanting you to do this? Right?
Yeah.
That Chris guy? I mean, or Chris
Well,
or
I
whoever he
told her
is?
that, and I told her
I mean,
that, and get this, I got to tell you this story. So this
okay.
past weekend, it was Friday evening, and my direct director in my building that I work in, he is my boss's boss. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he emailed me late Friday, and he goes, I just want you to know, I don't know if you even know that there's this fellowship. Do you even know about it? Like, you need to apply for this like right now. I know it's really short notice.
Oh.
And he CC'd my manager on it. And my husband and I were laughing because he's like,
Oh
wasn't
my
Kim like
God.
against it? And I was like, well, that's his boss. What's she gonna say?
Exactly. Good for you.
Christy,
So
on behalf of all of the other advocates in the state who have given hundreds of hours towards our cause,
Mhm.
this single item could make so much difference in the future of cancer
Oh,
care
yes.
that
Oh, yes.
we're so proud to have you as a colleague.
Absolutely.
thank you, but
We
I'm gonna be
are.
so embarrassed if I don't get accepted.
We
Yeah,
are
but like
keeping
I
our
said,
fingers
there's
crossed.
next
Will you
year.
still love
There's
me?
next year.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, golly.
Well,
We
in the
still love
chat,
you.
We're just
in the chat, I had to say, if this isn't a testament to our new advocates, then I don't
Mhm.
know what is. You've just kind of in 1 year dove all into embracing, everything that we do, learning from all of these other advocates. You really have just taken it and run with it. And on that note, I also want to highlight that today Leah met with her congressman's office by herself for the first time. Um,
Yay!
Without
Leah went
Jody.
without a mentor, without me or Jody or anyone else. She went to Brad Winstrup's office. She's been emailing with his team and developing a relationship. So, Leah, I do want you, if you can, just share a few words about that. So, two people that have been with us
Yes.
for only
Yes.
a year diving full in, and I'm just really proud of this team. But if you want to share how
Hey,
that went,
Leah.
Leah.
It went really great. I was definitely overthinking it before the meeting. But I got to meet with Alex, which is Brad Wenstrup's district director. We talked about MSED a little bit, and again, thanking them in person for the co-sponsorship. And we really got to talk at length about PSA for him. When I reached out to Sarah and Jody about this meeting beforehand, they're like, this is really quick. It's going to be like 15 minutes. I'm like, okay, great. So, like, there's not enough time really for me to mess it up there. That's good. And it ended up being like over 45 minutes. So we just got to talking, and he said he's gonna talk to the congressman about PSA for him, but that it's right up their alley. So I'm feeling really great about them supporting us in the form of co-sponsorship for PSA for him now after the long conversation we had about how important screenings are. Tom, I did get to talk about you in the meeting too. I actually referenced you specifically, you and your son, and that really spoke volumes to Alex. I found out a lot of good information about the congressman. All around, it was a really, really, really good first meeting for me to have with them. Um, the congressman, he made it very clear that he's all for, the legislation that we're trying to push with, screenings, increasing funds for research. So it was really great. I did find out that the congressman he's on like a COVID committee. He's like the chair where they talk about like during the pandemic, like what could we have done better? What can we put in place going forward to where we don't make these mistakes in the healthcare field again? And after I shared my story with him, um, similar to how I shared in DC about my clinical trial being shut down due to funding, Alex actually asked me if I would be willing to speak at future events that they're going to plan, as like a survivor slash victim speaker to share my story there. The congressman would be there. And of course I said yes. It's like, yeah, like, of course, like, sign me up. So he's going to help. I'm going to get involved a lot more with how they engage in the community. He said that he looks forward to working with me more together soon. And I also invited him to our TQL Cancer Awareness Month event tomorrow, and he said that he would love to come. So it was really, really great. He said, I think I'm like 95% sure that Winstrup's going to co-sponsor PSA for him. So yeah, it was great.
Super awesome. I know that those first meetings are nerve-wracking, especially by yourself. And I just reiterated so much to Leah that this is, a building block to them getting to know you, you getting to know them, so that, folks like Barb and Lorna and Pam Angus, Vince, you guys have been around and built relationships with, you know, um, for years. Folks know you by name. Amelia Sykes and her team, watching them respond to Pam and Vince and Lorna. When you keep reaching out and you keep having these conversations and you keep building on that personal level, getting to know them, it really makes a huge difference. And so I just think it's so cool that you ran with that opportunity and kept following up with him, scheduled a meeting, and really made sure that they took the time to have that meeting. So just huge kudos to you, Leah. And again, this is a district that we haven't had someone super active over the years till Jody came in last year and then redistricting happened and she moved to 1 and Leah has just stepped right up into District 2. And so just really excited to see that growing and us having that representation in the Cincinnati area. So just way to go, everyone. I wanted to make sure you had the opportunity to share a little bit with everybody on that.
I forgot to mention to you guys earlier when I called you freaking out about it too. He did love my email. That the Skyline bit.
She did
Where
do a little
we kicked
intro
him
to
in the
Skyline.
gut with the supporting this legislation means more time with our loved ones, more time to take my kiddo to Skyline. He did love that. We didn't go on and on about it, but he said that he
Love
thought that
it.
was really, really sweet.
It draws attention, right? So when you had the idea, yeah, Jody and I said, run with it. Like that's the fun stuff that hopefully, they're going to remember when they're sorting through all their emails and they're going to remember like Leah and her son going to Skyline. And again, now you're building that relationship to where they do know who you are and they'll think of ACS and ACS can. So just a really great example for everyone on that creativity and some of the fun reasons you can reach out and think of a reason to email someone. And that was, hey, taking my kid to Skyline and just thought about, wanting to follow up on a meeting with you. So just great job. Really fun ideas and hopefully can encourage all of us to keep reaching out after DC to our lawmakers who we are wanting to have as potential co-sponsors of, especially PSA for him, since that was just kicking off really heavily when we were there in DC. So think of fun reasons like that to send another email, a personal reason you could reach out and follow up with our reps who we had meetings with or didn't have meetings with and are trying to follow up with them. So just really great examples there. I love it. Anyone else have things they've been working on or want to share to close us out?
Sarah, just a comment. I noticed when I logged on early in the meeting, there was someone, a lady that was on camera. Her name was Tiara or Tiana or something.
Yep.
She must be gone now, and I don't know who she was.
She joined us, was that 2 months ago, Vince, you
Yeah,
recruited her from Akron?
Tira is someone I was introduced. She lives in Akron, but I was introduced via someone from Iowa. Uh, she was either a vice SLA or SLA there, and so I hooked her in, and so I had her come last month to the meeting just to see what it's all about. She was on tonight, but she had to go to another meeting. She sent me a text in the middle, and she had to leave early, but she is interested in joining us. She is a cervical cancer survivor. So I think that she would be a good addition. She is really involved with a group called Survivor, CER, Survivor. And that's how I got connected with her, was through that group.
Nice. Thank you, Vince.
Yeah, and she's definitely been emailing and staying in the loop with both Vince and I. She's actually emailed me on the side too, so happy to have her along, especially as we probably into early next year, start planning for Cancer Action Day, because that will be coming soon, for all of us to think ahead to. So lots to come with people staying engaged with us.
I have one more comment. I've talked to Leah and I've talked to Sarah about this. I spoke at University of Cincinnati, and the lady that followed me is a general practitioner who only takes cancer survivors. And I sort of got away from her because of COVID and the distance I am away from her office in downtown Cincinnati. And being unsatisfied with my general practitioner in Springfield, I reached back out to her and went to see her last week. And as we discussed where we are in life, I asked about her children, and her son is a freshman at Wyoming High School, and he is interested in politics. And so I suggested that she bring him to Cancer Action Day in the spring, and she indicated that she would be there, he would be there, and she would pass the word at UC.
It's very exciting. So yeah, the second we have a date, that's what Julie said. She said she told me she would take off and bring her son. And that's an exciting thought ahead to, yeah, when we start to plan next year's
It's
Cancer
just
Action
really
Day.
good news for Southwest Ohio, because we have just struggled mightily. The folks in Columbus and Cleveland have been blessed with people that came out in a lot more regularly, I guess, than the folks in Southwest Ohio. But to know we have some good stuff going on down here is music to my ears.
Definitely. And what a great opportunity just to chat with someone about the opportunity. So thinking ahead already to Cancer Action Day recruitment. I love it. Well, thank you all so much for taking the time. It's great to see all of you. Look for the biomarker testing selfie flyers to come. And again, just ask that you take some time to look back on the fundraising and sponsorship strategy session call and our new working document that we have, if you're interested in being a part of that strategy conversations to come and brainstorming for all of our next year efforts when it comes to fundraising and sponsorship. So reach out if you have any questions or thoughts on that. But appreciate all the time you all have taken to be at events, reaching out to lawmakers, connecting with each other. I love seeing all of the camaraderie and all of the work that we're out doing, and just really appreciate it as we kind of finish out going ahead into the next couple of months to finish out the year. It's just, yeah, a really great time to be proud of our Ohio team and all the recognition that we have and definitely will continue to receive as we're closing out 2023. So kudos to everybody, and reach out if you have any questions, thoughts, or needs. And we'll see you next month. Good night,
Have a
everybody.
nice night, everyone.
Good
Night,
to see you.
everyone.
Bye, fam.